This episode of Love Lauren is sponsored by SB Fabrication and Parts.
One other thing we need to do on this machine is get this clutch cable installed. At one end we've got a little eyelet, and that hooks into one of the pins on the lever of the handlebars. And on this end we've got our spring, we've got some bolts, we've got the little T-section, and that's going to fit into place like so. So we'll uncoil this. These cables do tend to stretch out a little bit in use, and they're not terribly cheap to replace, but if you do opt to replace them, they come all together like so, with the housing, the cable housing, the cable, and all of your bolts and stuff on here. So this cable will be positioned in here like so. The spring will fit on the inside. On the solid deck there's our little, I don't know what you call it, little bracket that bolts onto the side of the deck. On the twin you've got a post sticking up like that. Serves the same purpose, so that the T end of this cable is going to slot through the end of our intermediate clutch operator duvalaki that pivots. Spring goes in the middle like that, and then this threaded bolt threads into the bracket itself to hold everything in place. I've got the cable just sort of laid out here. I want to try and get this T-section sitting squarely in the little operation bracket there. And it's a little bit of a tight squeeze. Might not go on this machine because the powder coat's too thick, perhaps. I don't know. So we'll just feed it in there, pop it down the slot, get the spring down there again, then start feeding this bolt through as much as it will go by hand. Got a little 8mm spanner here that I'm using to tighten this thing up. It's probably a metric head on here, I would guess. I'm not sure. But what's going to happen, this bolt, as it extends through the bracket section here, it will start to screw into the spring, and the spring will then end up sort of positioning itself around the body of that of this adjuster. Just back off the little adjuster screws as needed. And we can set the fine adjustment of this thing as required, but as far as I know, this clutch is either on or it's off. I don't know that there's really a middle ground with it, so I'm just gonna take it in about like so, and when the time comes we'll lock off these two bolts against the bracket and then against the lower nut there as well. You can see that spring's now sitting so squarely in there. The little T section of on the end of the cable is not, but that's okay. And you can see if we pull on it, that's what our clutch is going to do in operation. We'll probably need to let it off a little bit further so that it can operate a little bit more than that. But that'll do as a starting point for now. I'll get this clutch lever and clutch cable back together next. For doing so, I've got two little lever pins. There's one long one that goes through my top hole. It's longer because it needs to fit through this little bracket. So it pops in there, through both sides, and at the other end. And it's secured with one of our favourite little clip things. The clutch cable then comes up behind the handlebars. It clips on under the little cover plate on the handlebars. So it's sort of tucked away, and we've got two holes that we can put this little eyelet through, the first hole or the second hole. Not sure what that hole is actually there for, but I think the go is the hole that's closest to the operator. So again, little post, it's got a fat end and a little grooved end, so it fits through. With the grooved end facing outwards, doesn't really matter, but looks nicest that way, I think. The powder coat was just a bit thick on that hole, so I just got a bit of 80 grit sandpaper and removed the paint there. And let's see if this is going to fit. Again, this is the short post for here, and that's going to fit through nicely now, so got plenty of room. There's a little turn section on the end of that housing, so what we'll do is we'll feed that in there like that, put the cable itself up through the slot, and then that little nipple fits up through into a little seat, basically. If you've already got your clutch cable installed down below as well, it might be a little bit on the tight side. Just let off that tension by turning the little barrel connector into the clutch bracket, and I think, there we go, that's going to fit through now. You can adjust the cable tension by and by, but the main things I think are just to make sure that that housing is seated at both ends, make sure the cable itself is not too tight, and finally, before anything gets away from us, we'll pop our little circlips on there. There is a proper tool to use for this. It's not a flat blade screwdriver, especially if you want to see it again, but that's what I'm using today. Eye protection is maybe not a bad idea for this job as well. And there we go. We'll keep working at that. And there we have it. A little bit of swearing, a little scratch or two, and there's some paper stuck in there, but bloody things on there. Just at the back of the machine here, to secure this clutch cable, I've got one of these original little clip retainer thingies, and it's circular with a little bump for actually holding the cable, so the cable fits in there like that. So the way I'm going to work this, obviously I've passed the cable up back side of the handlebars here, so it goes through the bottom sort of fork, and I'm going to secure it sort of like so, and on the inside of the handlebars. So I want to do that without scratching my paintwork if I can, and I'm just going to just sort of slip the jaws of that clip open. There we go, and feed it down and through. I've actually got two of these, so I might pop another one there because this one's sort of slipping around a little bit, and I don't really like the way it's working, so we'll review that. A lot of the guys, if you don't have these things, a lot of guys will use the just a zip tie that's either color coordinated to your paint scheme or contrasting. It's up to you though. It's probably worth noting as well, this clutch cable housing and the clutch cable itself, I guess, are both new, probably a little bit on the stiff side, so that could be why we're getting this little action happening here. I could reverse it as well and send it down the other side, or maybe pop it on the other bar. That might work better. Have a play anyway and see what works.